gathered here today in the sight of God to join this man and this woman.
Can a marriage survive broken covenant? Or can a marriage still stand when vows or covenants are broken?
Join us as we discuss agony in marriage under the topic broken marriages.
We are gathered here today in the sight of God to join this man and this woman.
Can a marriage survive broken covenant? Or can a marriage still stand when vows or covenants are broken?
Join us as we discuss agony in marriage under the topic broken marriages.
We are gathered here today in the sight of God to join this man and this woman.
Can a marriage survive broken covenant? Or can a marriage still stand when vows or covenants are broken?
Join us as we discuss agony in marriage under the topic broken marriages. Welcome once again. We have these conversations with Reverend Allan, and I want to take this opportunity just to allow the host of the show to enlighten us on the discussion topic for today. Karibu sana, Reverend Allan.
Karibuni sana. We thank God because of this show. Last week we started a topic that is called agony in marriage, and it was a good discussion. And we said that we want to deal with agony in marriage using aspects that amounts to the triggers of this agony in marriage, because we discovered that many people are living in agony in their marriages. And we say, what is it that causes agony in marriage? And when we documented them, we said we will cause them to become our topics. And one of them is broken covenant. Therefore, our topic today is agony in marriage, broken covenant. And I welcome you that we may journey together.
Thank you so very much, Reverend Allan. We are going to discuss about broken covenant that brings agony in marriage. On my immediate left, we have our counselor psychologist, Janet Surum Kiplagat. It's always a pleasure. Welcome. We are joined with this wonderful man we had missed for long, Vicar S.K. Belgut, none other than Reverend Nicholas Rotich. Say a word of Jambo and tell us where you've been.
I'm Jambo. I'm happy to be here again. And maybe, though it's a bit late, but then Happy New Year. Good to be here. And yes, I've been busy running up and down. It's back to almost normal. And then I'm back here, and thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, Reverend Vicar. Welcome, Janet Surum, and our host, Reverend Allan. I just want us to begin to discuss about broken covenant. But before we discuss about a broken covenant, what is your understanding of a covenant, especially a marriage covenant?
Thank you. We are dealing with a broken covenant in marriage. And when we speak about broken covenant in marriage, it precedes a covenant, an existence of a covenant. It means there existed a covenant, then it is now broken. And that's what we would want to address. I said in the beginning that marriage is a coming together of two people, male and female, that have agreed, having a consent in front of people that they want to become husband and wife. Now, a covenant in marriage, it means that binding agreement that is not temporary, agreement that binds, and it normally involves the two individuals, their families, friends, community, and God. Those are all players. When we make the marriage covenant, it is between the man and the woman, they make that covenant, it will never be broken. And we have God as the one who watches over that covenant, is involved in that covenant, such that he binds it, and there is a community that is also involved. So covenant means an agreement that is binding, that all parties must follow it to fulfill. And you know, at times we think that it's only the two people who are in covenant. God is bound by the covenant to bless that marriage, to make sure that it works. Community is bound with that covenant to make sure that they play their role, that that marriage works. And the two people who are owners of the marriage, they are also bound by that covenant to make sure that it works.
Thank you, Reverend Allan. I just want to bring in Janet to give us her view on the covenant, the marriage in covenant. Then Vika will end that question for us. Janet, what is your understanding of a covenant in marriage?
Okay, thank you. And thank you once again for having me here. A covenant in marriage, in my perspective, and going far from other types of covenant, it is a solemn agreement. It is a solemn agreement. Unlike any other covenant that we can enter into, it is a solemn agreement.
Thank you. Vika, what are your thoughts?
Yes, thank you again. And the way Reverend Allan has mentioned is that marriage is a covenant. Yeah, and as saying goes, marriages are made in heaven. And if marriages are made in heaven, then it begins with God. And so there can be three parties majorly who are enjoined in that pact. That is God, and then there are the two individuals, male and female, and then the rest are enjoined as other parties, other stakeholders in that. And so maybe because it has been mentioned in full and length, is that I want to maybe just say it is a pact that goes till till death. You see, that is the aspect, that is the time frame for it to be a covenant. Yes, it has to go up to the end of life of either of the party. Of course, in this case, minus God, who is not to die.
Thank you. So we understand that marriage is a covenant till death do us part. I just want us to bring a controversy in our generation. There are people who believe marriage is a covenant, and there are people who go into marriage as a contract. So what are your thoughts around, is marriage a covenant or a contract?
And I thank God we started by the good question that you wanted us to describe or define what is a covenant, what is a marriage covenant. Because we speak from the perspective of the original design of marriage, intention of God and man when he created them. Two shall become one. He created marriage to be a covenant, a binding agreement, till death do us apart. And a covenant is a higher level of a contract. A covenant is a contract, but a higher level of a contract. A covenant is completely binding, and God is involved, and our lives are involved. And that's why when you follow people that are doing rituals or religious rites, you'll discover that a covenant involves some blood things to seal it completely. It is a matter of life until death do us apart. But I've spoken something here, and I did it intentionally. I said marriage involves four parties. The covenant involves four parties. The owners of the marriage is husband and wife. God is the author of marriage, and community is the custodian of marriage. So the four parties are involved in this covenant, such that the work of the community is to respect and to support and to enhance this covenant. The work of God is to bless and to supply life into this covenant. And the work of these two is to keep the covenant amongst themselves. But many people have not yet cultivated their marriages into a place of a covenant. It has remained in an agreement, an arrangement. Two people coming together, maybe they have a child together, and they decide that they are going to stay together as husband and wife. The binding factor here is a child. Another thing is two people have found themselves, they are grown-ups, and they have attained the age of staying together as husband and wife in a marriage, and they decide to stay together in such a loosely agreement. Therefore, that one is not a covenant, it becomes a contract. It ends when the reason as to why they were staying together ends. It only survives because of the reason. The community and God are not bound into it. Yeah.
Thank you. So is marriage a covenant or a contract?
Janet mentioned something to do with the solemn vow, making a solemn vow. And for me, a covenant is that solemn vow where you are in it, in mind, in heart, and actually physically. Yeah, you are bound, and you are making vows and invoking the name of God, and you are sealing it by extension. You are sealing by consummating, and so you are sealing by blood. Actually, let me say that, and so that makes marriage to be a covenant. Unfortunately, is that our days are the days that people are becoming casual. They are just taking some of the things at face value, casually, never putting themselves in it. They don't make commitments. And so guys would love temporary things, things that as long as we are just convenient, yeah. So let us agree for convenience. And so they do agree for convenience, which makes it a contract. Yes, and so if things are getting worse, not for poorer, not for richer, not for that, then they become loose, and so they leave. So for me, is that contracts have got a short time frame. Covenants are lifelong, till death.
Okay. So, Janet, what are your thoughts? As we discuss agony in marriage, there's the issue of where we live, and you feel like people are saying, it was just a contract for 3 years. Just wanted this guy to give me a baby, or I wanted this for that time.
If there is any solemnization, it becomes a covenant. But where two people just agree to live together without any, without any solemnization, then it becomes a contract. But in my opinion, any marriage is a covenant. And actually, I describe marriage as a risk. Before you get into marriage, you're taking a risk. So you analyze the risks. And that is why it becomes a covenant. It is also a covenant because it involves sacrifice. Yeah, you sacrifice your body, you sacrifice yourself, your time, your name, your dreams.
Nowadays, people don't sacrifice names, they just put a hyphen.
They put a hyphen, but just remember, you've sacrificed adding another name, you see?
You just add a
identity.
Yeah.
As a woman, you sacrifice carrying babies.
And also the man sacrifices giving you his name also.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, you hold the patent of it.
He gives you his name, you take that name.
What would you say when you've been having a girlfriend? She's been visiting you, and then one day she decides to stay, and she stays until you get children, until you are called husband and wife. I would still call it a covenant. But a contract that graduates into a covenant, but the strength of that covenant matters a little bit. Yeah. What would you speak about two people that have met in a town, and they decide, we don't have money to rent a house. Let us come into a collabo, stay together, and do the necessary as we move on. And in the process, they get children and they live together. So actually, marriage, as you're saying, is a covenant, but whenever there is no third parties that are involved, God and the community, the strength of that covenant becomes a little bit weak. But I am sure we are going to discuss the components of a covenant so that we can be able to cover all these arrangements.
Okay, so
maybe just a minute. Maybe, Pastor, that issue of maybe you found yourself in another town, it's cohabiting. And cohabiting is not a covenant. Without any solemn agreement.
Yeah.
That one.
Actually, I want to concur with.
Now, how long to what extent a cohabiting can become a marriage?
Whenever there's an agreement.
Good.
The way you've said, you involve the community, you involve God,
Dowry
that one becomes
negotiation.
Thank you.
Yes.
That's good. I
Dowry
like that. I like that.
Dowry negotiations are involved. There are some cows that
Yeah.
are released, a name is taken, etc.
So there's a possibility many marriages that we are calling marriages
Yeah.
is cohabiting.
Yeah.
Good.
Yes.
Definitely,
yes.
because when you realize people have issues, then you hit a dead end when people are cohabiting. When people are in a covenant, there are avenues. There are parents, there is the church, maybe there is the officiating minister. You can always look for ways, and then it is easier. The cohabiting couple is a little bit tricky because
So-
maybe this other side they say we don't know this guy, and then the woman side they say we don't know this woman, so it becomes tricky.
So maybe to our viewers, maybe you are crying about your marriage and you are cohabiting.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you are crying about you're having marriage expectations in a cohabiting relationship.
Environment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
And sometimes it's true. I've heard somebody complaining, my wife is disturbing me and I have not formalized this marriage. And they have big children that we are cohabiting, and the wife knew that this was a marriage.
And
So
that is why I was saying many of us and in our ages are taking things casually. And so when you live as man and woman, male and female, in such kind of relationship, as we call it cohabiting, as we call it come we stay. Yeah, you are staying together, you are living together, but then you are not yet married.
The complete version is come, we stay and see whether we like it.
Yes, God
So,
says.
so I think we can go on. Thank you for those insights. I think we can pick up what are some of the components that are in a covenant in marriage. What are some of the components that when we are discussing as broken covenants, what are some of the components that are found in a covenant in marriage?
Now, having clarified the issues of cohabiting and marriage as a covenant, I actually like that. I'm waiting to preach about it. That is good. I love it, especially when it's coming from the other side. Now, I'm sure there are many people who are cohabiting, but they have assumed a form of marriage, and their expectation is it's a marriage. And therefore, as we address broken covenant, we would also want to address them. They have stayed together, and they have called themselves husband and wives in their own ways. I would say a component of a covenant in marriage, I can get it out of the intention of God for marriage. That is how I can get the component of this covenant. God said, go a man to take his wife as a companion. As a companion, I would say one of the components is companionship. For better, for worse, I will always be with you. Number two, I would say another component would be sexual component of the covenant. God gave us a sexual partner such that you will not need to move around for sex. Sex is available in your house. When you marry, you are bringing sex into your house.
I like that God gave us a sexual part.
Yeah, sexual component. That's a sexual. That's a
gift.
That is a component of that covenant. This the sexual part is a component of that covenant. Number three, I would also speak about helpmates. God gave us somebody that will be a helper. So helping one another, coming in for one another, becomes a component of a marriage. And procreation, children, to continue in creation. That is also another part of that component of marriage. So maybe we can break it. We can break it deeper.
Speaker.
Yes.
Yes. What are some of the ingredients of components?
Yes, those ingredients, especially when you look at or when you hear what Reverend has mentioned, talk about children, talk about sex, talk about whatever it is, the components of that marriage. These things are fluid. There are things that change. There are things that don't. They are not bound to come automatic. Yeah. And so those components are the things that we use so that we prosper ourselves and also prosper the community. Yes, that is one. Two is that we must also make sure that those components are actually understood as we come into marriage for us now to operate, because it gives us a kind of a framework in which that marriage will be operating, the parameters. And so when we mentioned children, when we mentioned a helpmate, when we mentioned, what is the other one? Sex, everything in there is that we must get an understanding that all of us are coming and we must be sharing in those components, which may not be automatic that we are going to get, but then fully aware of those components is that I'm committed to take this one individual and ask God to be with me as I share the same components with this partner. That is what I may want to say in that context.
Your inputs or your thoughts?
I have nothing to add because the 4 components are clear. The only thing I'd say is that the components involve sacrifice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They involve sacrifice. It's true. Commitment.
I can bring it in this manner. When God creates a human being, there are needs in this person, and those needs are translated into these components. Man or a woman has a need to have their own children. And when they don't have their own children, in as much as they can survive, but there will always be a certain lack in their needs. We also, both of us in marriage, we have a need for sex. And whenever that one lacks or it is done in an improper manner, you will discover a certain need is not met. There's a need for friendship, companionship. You cannot be alone. We are community in nature. And we also have a need, of a helper, somebody by your side. And that's why in God's own wisdom decided also to send us the Holy Spirit, who is a helper. So every human being needs a helper in life. And that's why sometimes you will hear some people telling you, I wish there was somebody in my life to help me in this matter. Sometimes you hear somebody telling you, I'm so lonely, I can't sleep, I'm so lonely. I wish there was a man or a wife in my life to be my friend, to be a companion. Sometimes somebody would say, I really need a sexual attention. I wish there was a partner in my life to meet this need. And you will hear somebody telling, I really desire to have my own child. So these are the things that form the component of this covenant.
And maybe let me just add one thing and say, psychologically also, it is a human need to be in a sort of a relationship and maybe come into marriage. We have a psychologist who describes psychosocial stages of human beings, and Eric Erickson, for that matter. So he talks about intimacy versus isolation. So it comes a time in our life, again, as human beings, that we have the need for
Intimacy.
such that if we do not fulfill that need, then we become lacking in the society. Yes.
Yes, it gives us why, the reason why we are getting married, because the components as well, it is, as a human being, yeah, like if I'm created and I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, and male in this case, is that I have to function. I have to function
As a male.
and use everything that I have. Yeah? And the only way, the only place I can do that as a male is within the context of marriage, and those are the components that are helping me to be me and to belong somewhere.
Interesting conversation we have here as we continue the needs. And I'm just wondering, if human beings knew these are some of their needs, then why are they breaking them? Why are they breaking them?
And that's why
that leads me to this question. What are some of the triggers that lead to breaking? Because now we have these needs. Now we've gotten these needs in a marriage. Again, we are breaking them.
And I think that's why we are discussing broken covenants. And as a spiritual teacher, I would bring us to something that is called tendency towards sin. Tendency towards sin. Man has a tendency towards that which is not allowed. It's called natural rebellion in every human beings, and maybe can be the number one reason that defines why we break these covenants. Because if this is a need, and we were given enough time to make decision that the person that I am taking is coming to fulfill this need, then when this person comes, you get outside to look for fulfillment of the same thing that can be fulfilled in your house. And many a times, even before I go to the real discussion, many a times you'll discover you go out to fulfill it with somebody that at times looks even lesser than the one that you have left in your own house. And that one now qualifies our spiritual part, tendency towards sin, concupiscence, tendency towards sin. Man is attracted to that which is not allowed. If today we are told we are not allowed to put our microphone down, we will put it down. But if they just keep quiet about it, we will continue as we are doing. So it is tendency towards sin. Now, as I address why are there broken covenants and the needs are supposed to be met, I would say sometimes needs are not met, even though we think it is met. Sometimes someone's companionship need is not met. Or if it is met in a way that does not fulfill him or her. Sometimes someone's sexual needs are not met, or if they are met, not in a way that the person needed it. And also the issues of children. That's why somebody has many children, but he still goes out telling other people, I want a child with you. There's a certain place that he feels this need has been met, but not properly, according to me. And there are many factors. There are many reasons as to why these needs are not met. Now, one of the things I would want to say about
maybe you want a brown children, you have got a black ones.
Yeah, or sometimes somebody thinks that somebody is so clever and is married to somebody who did not pick things in school, so he decides to look for one there to hide one just in case. A backup plan.
Yeah.
A backup plan. So I would say number one, why a covenant broken? I would say the perception that my needs in marriage are not met accordingly. Perception. Why am I calling it perception? Because the other person may think that it is being met. Because when you ask the community and God, they all may think that it is met. Maybe it's a perception. Maybe you need to be learned by somebody that this need is being met. Perception that this companion of mine is not doing enough as a companion. It's not a friend enough. There's a problem of communication. There's a misunderstanding in communication. Perception, because you may come to a place and you think that sexually I may get more satisfied with the other person than this person, because maybe of familiarity, because maybe you have stayed together for a long time, and because maybe of that tendency towards sin. I would say mostly it is that perception that my needs are not met in this marriage. Therefore, I go out to look for it elsewhere. Number two, and then I allow others to do it. I would say sometimes it's because of grievances that may exist. Some grievances, maybe a certain misunderstanding over a period of time that begins to hamper a smooth flow of friendship and fellowship between the couple. It begins to hamper that. The couples begins to develop some kind of enmity and coldness towards one another, to the level that one looks for companionship elsewhere. Grievances that at times may affect their sexual desire of one another. Times I would say grievances that go deep, that at times may affect the other one from being a helper that this other one is expecting. So mine, I've spoken about grievances and perceived and met expectations.
Interesting. Maybe I'll get back to the two gentlemen here. There's this perception why men cheat. They will tell you, you are too fat. They like skinny brown ladies. Maybe we'll discuss that, why men have a perception that a thin girl, a slender thin girl, is good in bed than a chubby, wonderful woman. That's a perception.
Maybe me and Reverend will not be
No.
will not be very competent there. We will have to source. We will have to outsource.
Yeah, I want answers from you, because because you are male first before your pastors.
Looks
Yes,
like we'll have to
Vika.
outsource Reverend. Anyway, we'll
Because
cross
Pastor
that
has
bridge when
spoken
we
about
get there.
perception, and there's
Yeah.
a perception in a man's mind about a slender, brown, slim lady. Yes.
Yes, we are becoming, it's becoming more sticky. But yes, and the thing is, actually, the problem, human beings have a problem. Human beings have a problem. Even when they come to marriage, is that we do have that challenge of what do we want. And so when it's like when we are getting married, is that we are reducing either sex or a partner or children as objects.
Mhm.
And we've reduced almost everything kind of commercial, and we take them casually. It's something to be used. Yeah. And so if that is the mind and that is the thinking around the world, yeah, which has reduced, can be sex, can be children, as they call them products. It's a product of marriage. But these are human beings who are in themselves are independent, and it's only God who is gracing you to have them. And so if we make them the people who are objects, then if sex is an object, then it means if this is the object, then I can as well look for another. If this is the microphone that does not function, then I can look for another one that functions. Yeah. But then so that is the thinking of commercializing and making reducing everything. Now, again, as human beings, is that it's like we don't understand what really God wants us to have in marriage, and so we don't invest, and we don't invest in things that help us in relationship, in helping each other, and so the things that happen in the world, talk for example, work, and if I need a helper, for example, then it means I'm working and someone is coming as a companion and working. I need a company, a person, a partner, and so I need someone who can complement what I'm doing. We need to better this society by bringing more people, more good people, and so we need children. But if we make them, if our understanding, if or misunderstanding in this case of that component in marriage or everything, that is what makes everything to go haywire. So for me, in terms of being slender, being whatever, the figures around sexuality, for me is that that again we fall into the trap of looking at through the lenses of this world, yes, which the world is really giving us some lenses to say this is a better person, this is a wrong person, and that kind of a thing. That is.
Yeah, you said that just very quickly. Number one, I am sure when you are marrying somebody, you always see what they look like. You always see their shape, and when you get into marriage and you say this is not the shape that I wanted, it's a fallacy to some extent. Even though when people get married, they tend to change, both male and female. They tend to appreciate at some level, but you'll discover that both of you are appreciating. And if the physical body is the problem, physical bodies, your companions and your friends, you work on each other to make sure that you help your physical bodies to remain in the same level that you desire. But I would also say, the world has set evil standards and has given us images and has tried to campaign for those images. And that's why we get about small, slender, big, huge. It's actually an evil eyes of the world. Sometimes it's pornographic in nature. They open your carnal minds, and then you begin to open the other human beings in a carnal way. So you begin to see them with your carnal knowledge, not a human knowledge, which is respectfully. I would also want to say, concerning preferences of size, color, every human being has a preference. Naturally, I think Janet will agree with me. Psychologically, every human being has a preference. There's a certain color when it just passes in front of you, it attracts you. There's a certain height. There is a certain human being that when they pass in front of you, they attract you. And sometimes it may not be always sexually. Sometimes it may be something that is just printed deep inside your inner being. So I would actually say it is a corrupt version of who we are supposed to be, to say that we are looking for this or for that or for this. It's your marriage, just like children. My children are part of me. My wife is a part of me. It is not, my children are not objects of my marriage. They are part of me. In fact, even I would not want to call them product of my marriage. They are part of me. They are my extension. My wife also is my extension. And that is the original plan of God.
Thank you. Janet, what are some of the triggers? They have talking about casual, commercialization, perception, and what are some of your thoughts? What are some of the things?
Allow me also to put my disclaimer about the preferences. I think everyone should approach marriage with a mind that there's tear and wear. Yeah. How you met this person is not necessarily how they will be up to the end.
They appreciate.
Yeah, they in fact, most of the times they appreciate maybe in how they are thinking, how they dress, etc. But in terms of the body, etc., many people depreciate. So we should approach marriage with an understanding of tear and wear. And again, know that most of these things that we think about, color, they are just perceptions. It's true, Pastor, that everyone has their preferences. But if you go to your preference, then why, again, are you looking for another preference? And this leads me to something else about a trigger. Breaking a covenant is a form of emotional abuse. It is a form of emotional abuse to your spouse and even to the children that are involved. Now, the probability that someone who has grown up in an emotionally abusive family or environment to can I say, to perpetrate something like that, broken marriage is very high, because they learned from the best, who are our parents, the environment. So our upbringing plays a role in how we view marriage. Either we will move away from the traits of an abusive marriage, or we will be the ones who are the perpetrators of an abusive marriage. That because a person who has been abused will be the abuser themselves, or they will be abused, or they will be inclined to a person who is abusive. That is just psychological. So I wish to say that when we are trying to see who we are supposed to marry, we have to look at the perception of this person in terms of how they view marriage, the family they come from, and whether they are ready to make a change to move away from the families they come from, and something like that. I'm not saying that if you come from a broken family, then it will lead to a broken family. I'm saying that God has given us a mind to decide whether we are moving forward with the brokenness or moving away. Another trigger is lack of an open communication line. I want to assume that these are my needs. I want to assume that when we are dating, this is what happens, so we'll continue like that. I don't tell you what I expect of you. It's not wrong, actually, for a man to tell the wife that you are really growing and I'd like you to go to the gym. It's not something wrong. But the problem is we are not having an open line of communication. You see, a man says that if I tell this woman to go to the gym, she'll mistake me, and so he goes ahead to look for that, what we call the preference. Again, I'm sure most of you have read this book of 5 love languages. Psychologically, that book is very practical. You're showing me love in another way. You see, that is not my love language. That even if you help me in the house the whole day, my love language is not helping me. It is giving me gifts. So we have different views and we are not open to communicating. And then I don't know why also people think that grass is greener on the other side. there's the perception that the other person is better. The other person will treat me well, and we know where that ends. Definitely, you come back. And finally, I also think that another trigger is lack of commitment. When you decide that you're getting married, it is a covenant. It starts from being intentional about whether you're going forward with this or not. It's not only about the wedding ceremony and etc. Before you get married, make it a commitment that, for better or for worse, like the way our men of God have clearly broken it down. So are you willing to go forward in this commitment? People do not have the virtue of commitment because they have not developed personal values. One very key value in life is commitment. So by the way, anyone can break a marriage. I can also break a marriage, but my commitment is what will make me stay.
Thank you.
Yes.
Let me chip in a little bit. Before I say something. You spoke something about appreciating, depreciating. When we enter into marriage, what are we looking for? If you are coming from a broken family and so on, and that's why mostly in church setups we normally encourage people to do marital counseling. The work of marital counseling is to sanctify, to clean our dirty perceptions and imaginations about marriage, so that we may come into a common understanding. Before you move out of the broken covenant, I would say some of the things also that are involved to break triggers are distance. When a couple live apart for a long time, temptations are always there, and both of them or one of them, they become vulnerable to the temptations and the pressure of life. So distance would be one of them. Another thing I would say sometimes is just not taking good care of your marriage, either one or both of you. Surrendering yourself to what comes your way, and you allow your life just to begin to deteriorate to the level that you become a shortcoming to the expectation of the other person. This is not what he was expecting when he married you. I would want to say human beings are deeper. We are deeper than the physical frame that we are seeing here. We are deeper than our heights. We are deeper than our bodies. There is a deeper man inside of us. And that's why when we enter into marriage, we become intimate. It is good to spend time and to discern and get this deeper person. And you'll discover the first time you want to marry a person, the triggers are different from what makes you to stay with that person. When you see a person in the beginning, you may be attracted by their height, by their hair, by their body structure. You may be attracted by their education. You may be attracted by so many things, physical things. But as you are staying with this person, you discover the deeper person. And this deeper person is the one that will make you to stay in this marriage.
Yes, maybe to help us, maybe again, depart from that. Let me quote something that we normally use when we're asking people questions when they come to marriage. We say this, and I quote, so and so, will you take so and so to be your husband or wife and be united with them in the covenant of marriage? Will you love them? Will you cherish them? Will you honor them, comfort and protect them, and forsaking all others, and be faithful to them as long as you both shall live? Them in this case is stroke her or him. If you listen to that, it's a covenant, and you are asking questions, and you are asking a person to commit self, to say, will they do 1, 2, 3? With understanding that there are others. You are picking this person not because they are the only ones beautiful. You are picking this person not because they are the only one handsome or with preferences. There are others. But then you are making a commitment to pick one, so that you limit your space of operation. You limit you limit and say, I want to practice sex, yes. I'm limiting to this one. I want to share 1, 2, 3. I want to have children. I'm limiting to this one. Not because they are good or better than the rest.
You narrow.
You narrow it down.
You're narrowing your area of operation.
Yes. And so it's a commitment. And that is what
Very good.
and that is why you are calling it, you are making a sacrifice. You are making a sacrifice not to see this other one. Because you have said yes to one. You see? And so, if you think like the other one is better, then this one is presupposing this. He's asking you, will you cherish them? Work at it. Will you make them to be more appealing? Yes. We are not giving room to change. No. It is still death. Yeah, unless you kill them. Well, sorry. But then that is what it is. It's a commitment to that. And so, if we don't get that understanding, we are going to be running up and down and messing up.
And giving excuses.
Yes.
So it's a very interesting topic
Right.
about
The word giving excuses is the right word. We need to underline it
Yes.
for further discussion.
giving excuses and triggers. And
Yeah.
maybe just before we go for a short break, there are issues of drug and substance abuse.
Mhm.
There are issues of technology, phones. Because if you compare developed nations, there are higher chances of breaking covenant where both of you are working, both of you are empowered, both of you are exposed. So there are other risks that
Nature
can
of
trigger, nature of work.
Inability to provide
Yeah, that can
poverty.
trigger even religion.
religion.
Yeah, it can trigger breaking a covenant. Okay, it's very interesting when we have Vika and Reverend Allan together with Janet with very open, wonderful minds. We take a short break. Kindly follow us on our Facebook page. Kindly subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we'll be right back with Agony in Marriage, Broken Covenants. As we wind up in the second part, we're going to discuss wonderful things. Stay with us. As we get back from the short break, I want us to continue our discussion. And we have had a wonderful discussion because I've left saying there is no room for change. So I want to invite you, Vika, Reverend Allan, and Janet, to help us understand what are some of the signs or indicators somebody can begin to see that, hey, my covenant is broken. What are some of those things that somebody can pick to understand that now I'm living in a broken covenant that is causing agony in my marriage?
Yeah. Now, number one, I would say we begin to experience loveless marriage. Loveless marriage, marriage without any passion. There's no feeling for one another. You discover that your spouse is no longer interested in you. He's no longer excited about you. You can be in the house just like any other person. There's nothing in you that triggers their fire or their passion in you. We call them loveless marriage. They are no longer struggling to please you, to make you happy. They are no longer struggling to catch your attention. It is a loveless marriage. And sometimes it operates so innocently You may think that it is it's familiarity, but it is because when a covenant is broken, it means a virtue has been taken away from that marriage. If it is a sexual covenant, if it is a sexual component of the covenant, if it is a companionship component of the covenant, any component, a certain virtue has been taken away. So loveless marriages looks so innocent. You may think we are used to one another. Sometimes you can even give an excuse that now we are grown. We are grown now. We have stayed together for a long time. We are no longer children. That's why we do not have passion. But it's good. It can be a good reason you're grown. But it's good always to check and see what is the cause of this loveless marriage. Someone used to treat you well. Someone used to buy you gifts. Someone used to take you out. Someone used to be concerned on how you are feeling. Someone used to be concerned to win your affection, but it's no longer there. The affection has gone away. The moment you discover your spouse's affection is going away, you need to begin to interrogate, speak with them, so that you may understand whether they have broken the covenant. Number two, I would also say that interest to one another disappears. Interest about what you are doing. And that's why you discover sometimes a spouse goes to the college, completes college, the husband does not participate in their college life, does not come to their graduation. He doesn't care what this person is doing. Maybe the husband goes home to their village, he has lost their relative, the wife is no longer concerned about it. A certain interest has disappeared. You are traveling, no phone call. You are away for a week, no phone call. They don't ask you, how are you doing? What is happening with you? You are sick, they don't care about it. A certain interest about you disappears from somewhere. They don't care where you are because something, a virtue has been taken away. They no longer feel anything about you. Interest has gone away. And I would also say number three, and then I allow others to share, apart from lovelessness, apart from interest disappearing. You know, interest, sometimes you are just there. It's like you are not there. It's like your life no longer matters to anybody. Whatever you are doing with yourself, it doesn't matter. And events of your life are also forgotten so easily. Number three, I would also say you will begin to discover some aggressiveness in behavior. Some kind of intolerance will begin to creep in. Impatience with whatever you are doing, or impatience in the way the two are relating. Especially the person that has broken the covenant will begin to be very impatient and intolerant. The room, as Reverend said, that had been narrowed to one person, so the room has been expanded, but narrowed now to you. Your room that you had been given to express yourself in many ways has been taken away from you. Now, a lot of intolerance, a lot of impatience. The other person becomes angry so easily. They quarrel so easily. You discover that they don't tolerate what you are doing so easily, like the way they used to do before. Because the Bible says love covers multitude of sin. The moment somebody begins to pinpoint every small thing in your life as a mistake, every small thing you do, they see it as a mistake. And initially they used not to see it as a mistake. You need to begin to interrogate whether the covenant is still there, or you are living in a marriage, but the marriage whose covenant is broken.
Oh, interesting. Vika,
Yes.
what are some of the
indicators of broken covenant? And there can be so many, including such physical abuse, wife or husband battering, whatever it is. It can be neglect. Yes, no one is still interested in everyone and investing in the same partner. And if we take that, that is the main, as in the focus is the main. When you see lose a relationship, where people are never bound together, even in very simple things like parties, going out, no charm. They are no longer connected. Other symptoms like I don't know, phone. You see these phones, and you know sometimes we you do pick a lot of this. And when you see someone is really apprehensive when you pick their phones, it can raise some eyebrows. Some of those indicators, that comes as relationship that is not going quite well. So for me is that it depends on every couple and what they do, and the way they treat each other. And when you see that change, it may not come drastic, but then it can be slowly wearing down. So, and what Reverend is saying, you no longer come together and gel together. Then those are some of those.
Janet.
I'd like to talk about three things, and the first one is lack of empathy. Lack of empathy. When people are no longer, they do not care about the other person. I mean, genuine concern, genuine care. Imagine a situation where you're sick and no one cares. Everyone wants themselves sorted, but they do not care about you. So I'm thinking about lack of empathy. Like, seriously, there's no genuine concern about the other person, about the deep situations of life. And then, which now this lack of empathy again leads to being used in a marriage. My role in this, if I'm a woman, for example, this person becomes so close to me when it's time for sex, for example.
Or when they're hungry.
Or when they're hungry, food. They remember there's a home when it's food. They become so close. You see? And then again, from a woman's point of view now towards a man, when I need this man only for his provision. Money. Yeah, I care about him paying fee, bringing shopping, whatnot, using. I'm talking now about using. When people feel now they are being used, then a lot of the marriage is breaking. Again, competition. We are no longer a team. Yeah, we are trying to outdo each other. We are trying to see who is who. I am doing my own things there. I even buy my car without consulting you, etc. And for you, you do not even want me to own a car. Yeah, you see, it's two-way. Yeah, you do not even want me to own a car because you want to see me under you. All these things are, yes, it is manipulation, right? And competition. So I like that.
So that we don't miss on everything, secrets. When you begin to see secrets happening in a marriage, you used to flow, suddenly the other one is beginning to keep secrets from you, hiding some information, hiding some events. You must question. Another thing is accountability. You discover that this person is no longer accountable with their time. There's a part of their time you cannot account for it. If they have gone for work, there's a part of their time away from you they cannot account for that particular time. They cannot explain it, however much you try. There's something that like they're hiding something. You would also discover that someone begins to be absent from your life. Sometimes for a few minutes, sometimes they can even sleep outside. They stay away from house. There's something we call sexless marriage. A sexless marriage. The interest for sex disappears. Especially, it can be in the person that has cheated or in the person that feels like she has been cheated. It can be two-way. The person that has cheated may be suffering from guilt. And the person who feels like they have been cheated on, they may be feeling abused and detested. So again, when a couple goes for a long time without a sexual relationship and one of them does not want, sometimes it's good to interrogate. You'd also discover some arrogance, carelessness in the way somebody handles you or talks with you. They can even insult you. They can even slap you. They don't care what you are thinking about them, what you are feeling. Some carelessness. It's like they don't care about this marriage anymore. It doesn't matter to them. There are other kinds of fulfillment. And again, the person begins to to keep what belongs to them for themselves. They don't want to provide for the family. They don't want to share anymore. Secrets. The Bible says two shall become one. The Bible says they shall be naked before one another. Every time there's some secrets begins to develop, the nakedness part has been attacked. And again, sixth sense. Sometimes there's a certain feeling. You'll begin to feel things are not going on all right. And you need to begin to address. And maybe a disclaimer, not all the triggers or the indicators we are sharing, they are not exclusively for unfaithfulness. They can be meaning other things or other problems. Yeah.
Thank you. And also lying. There's a lot of lies, cheats. People they are not straightforward. And I want us to continue to discuss this show about agony in marriage, broken covenant. And I want to ask us what happens, or what are some of the consequences we see when covenants are broken? When the broken, somebody breaks a covenant, or one of the component is broken. What are some of the things we see? Janet.
From a psychological point of view, I'd talk about when now these people who are in this abusive whatever marriage, just because I said it is an abuse, it leads to unhealthy human beings, unhealthy adults, which also leads to violence. It leads to broken marriages again, breaking covenants. It also leads to low self-esteem. The children who come from that breaking marriage, they have a low self-esteem. I don't know if you people saw a video trending. I'm sure you saw. There's a video that was trending that was so categorical about emotional abuse. So it has an impact on the person, it has an impact on the spouse, it has an impact on the society in general. Maybe I'd just like to say that from a psychological point of view.
Yes, put it this way: broken marriage is a broken home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Simple. And that broken home is that it leads to, well, apart from the children going everywhere, wherever they want, no proper way of taking care of them. The two partners may have even increased the partners, each one of them. Unfaithfulness, it is sin. Guys will be doing sin. It's a vicious cycle. It's a vicious cycle. In fact, there is a very thin line between the indicators and the result. Yeah, the result that what you see actually ends up resulting as and also compound problem coming. And so if it is like people are no longer faithful, is that they divorce, yeah, they leave each other, they invest separately, they batter each other, they don't no longer invest the same. So that home is no longer home. For me, is that separation and nothing. Individuals who are running after own interests rather than collective interests as husband and wife.
I can say also stress-related diseases. These sicknesses as a result of emotional heartache for a long time that are caused by stress, diseases like ulcers, blood pressure, you begin to experience in a family because somebody is going through something for a long time and they cannot change. I would also say is a cause of these killings that we are seeing everywhere. Funny killings. Somebody is so hurt deeply and they decide to kill, or someone wants to hide something and they decide to kill. Dwindling economic fortunes because now the efforts are no longer put together. Children are neglected. We will also discover desertions in the family. Some people will abandon their family and begin to concentrate with other things. I would also say communications becomes poor amongst the two and even families. You can find enmity in the entire community as a result of this only one problem. Children outside marriage is one of the things that happens as a result of this kind of broken covenants. Some people begin to get children outside there, and it brings some unnecessary problems and trouble. I will say again, it affects the church. Couples cease to come to church, one of them or both of them. They may stop coming to church as a result of that. They begin to run away because they don't want to be accountable. By the way, as we were talking about indicators of a broken covenant, one of them you can see it so well in church. A person that breaks the covenant tries to avoid the church as avoiding a plague. They try to run away, finding excuses. As a pastor, I came to discover if someone runs away from a church for quite some time, I begin to check on their covenants in marriage, if they are a couple. And you'll discover at some point there's a problem, there's a trouble somewhere. So we can also be watchful in church fellowships. Yeah.
Yes. In fact, he's putting a very big thought in terms of the relationship between the church and our, and actually we actually practice our Christianity, our spiritual life in our marriages. Yes, and when we talk about the Church of Christ being the bride and Jesus being the bridegroom, you see that is simple, which means marriages should be taken, and they must be taken seriously with a lot of commitment, with a lot of chastity in it, with a lot of faithfulness and honesty. I know time and again we are bound to maybe slip here and there, but then there is a remedy. There is a way in which we come back and have a fulfilled life within that context.
And lastly, it can also be a vicious cycle. If the one of the spouse that feels like they are cheated on is not stable, they will again move out and cheat. So it will be a round table event. Also diseases like HIV and AIDS, sexual transmitted diseases, and other diseases also can be an effect of this covenant broken. So it can be a vicious circle. You cheat, I cheat, you cheat, I cheat, and then you become a cheating family.
Interesting conversations there.
And drug and substance abuse.
Yeah, interesting conversations there. I just want us to wrap up this show from Janet to Vika, then to Reverend Allan. What are your closing thoughts? Is there a way forward? Is there a remedy when covenant is broken? Is there a way forward?
Wow, okay. There's a way forward. There's a way forward, but one thing I always say, if you want to be helped, you must get up. You must stand up. You cannot, for someone to reach out to you, you must stand up. So the initiative has to come from you. And for the young people who are not yet in marriage, every time you try to make a decision, query if it is a covenant or a contract. And I think that will basically guide you. For those in marriage, again, you need to ask yourself whether you are in a contract or a covenant that is recognized by God or the law. So I think from there we can now see. And I think, Pastor, I in future maybe we could talk about married but single. Yeah, married but single.
Married, single.
Yes, yeah. We want to speak to everyone and say, in case you may have suffered something within your union, where your husband and or wife and maybe things are not working well, there is a restoration. One is that God is one who is ordaining all marriages, and so believe in him, turn to him first, then the rest for me will fit into its place. The second one is this, that we have, God has given us people who are helping us to guide us and also to give us a bit of counseling and guidance in this field. And so seek them. Yeah, seek and for an advice, and then they will be genuine enough to really advise and also work on that. That is a way in which we can restore some of those broken covenants.
The only results of a broken covenant in marriage, the only possible result is a broken marriage. Every time there's a broken covenant, the automatic expectation is a broken marriage. But you can make a decision and say, even though the covenant is broken, but we want to salvage our marriage, that we don't want it to get to a broken marriage. And we want to minimize the agony by now making a decision out of it. And the only way you will save it is true repentance and forgiveness. True repentance on the part of the one who's been breaking the covenant, forgiveness on the part of the person that feels is aggrieved. But that one comes only and if the couple wants to keep their marriage. Only when and if they want to keep their marriage. It cannot be done by any other person. The two people. It cannot be done by one person. If one person say, okay, let me continue in this marriage with this broken covenant, eventually there will be a bad result in both of them. They may even die of stress and anxiety. They must come to a table one day and say, we want to heal our marriage. The case is true repentance. True repentance is, I must turn around completely from this behavior. And the other one must say, even though I am hurt, but the only way to keep my marriage after I am hurt is to forgive. I think that's the only way I can advise somebody.
Wonderful, wonderful conversation we've had here with our wonderful host, Reverend Allan, our guest vicar, Reverend Rotich, and Janet. It's on this desk today, we just want to wish, it's your birthday, Reverend. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. And we want to continue with this conversation, Agony in Marriage. We've discussed about broken covenant. And I want us to join and listen in and follow us and ask questions and ask for support. Next week it will be interesting. We'll be dealing with broken agony in marriage, broken covenant, the segment of sexual infidelity and faithfulness, adultery, fornication, and all sorts of agony that are brought through sexuality. And I want to welcome you to join us, and it will be an exciting journey. Just follow us in this page and this conversation as we dig deep on the issues of agony in marriage, on the terms of sexual infidelity. We thank you for staying put with us, following us on our Facebook page, commenting. We welcome you to join us as we continue. Next week it will be sexual infidelity. I've been your moderator, Vivian Kibeu. See you again on Conversations with Reverend Allan. God bless you. Keep strong.